Hello and welcome. I hope you're all doing okay. I'm doing good. Had a good Christmas and all that jazz. So just going to do a quick video on this particularly rather than a sort of general one around the place. Just because I've built some little planters before, as you can see, and one over there behind the banana, but they're on solid surfaces, whereas this is a bit of a hybrid. It's on both, and also I haven't filled it with soil yet, so you can sort of see the bare bones on it, and I'll talk you through just my method for building it and a few things that have been slightly annoying about it. So the reason I wanted to build this in the first place was because I want to put I've got a nice big Cyathea couperii, which I want to put in this planter where those two camellias are. There are two, there's one big one and then one small one at the front, in front of the fork. Also I've got this statue head, I got given that, so that's very nice. So I need to find a place for him, so I thought I'd put him in the middle there. You can just see the little plinth thing that I've sort of made up for it. So the gist of it also was that when I make a pergola against the house here, I'm going to have two fence posts sort of, either side of that little jut out effectively. And what it is that with this fence post where he's a bit too far to the right, so as you come out you naturally sort of want to centre yourself between the posts, or you will do, which will make you off centre for the walk up to the patio up there. So I just wanted something to jut it out so I can get all my bits off, but we won't worry too much about that for now. All you need to know is that, A, that it's windy, and B, this is what it is. So my motif was kind of that bed that's got the bamboo in at the back. I wanted to kind of keep that as a continuation at that height across the back, and then fill up all these. That'll have a small Cyathea couperii in the middle that I've had from a little one, big Cyathea with a couple of ferns in there, and then the big camellia here. It's a bit bent, as we can probably see. It sort of just kicks off back there, so I can probably get that in there in such a way that it looks quite nice. And then the statue head on top of the plinth, which will, I think, look quite nice. So the bits with the plants in were already there. So the way I approached this was that this sort of bit that's coming out the end of the bamboo bed, if you like, which is coming towards us in the centre of the screen, I was kind of thinking if I had something like that on top of it, the coping stone, and then it can have a little overhang and then come again into another one here. So I wanted that to line up. So the first thing I did was put the block in. You have to remember this is a block and a half, these levels, so for the sort of beginning bit I'll be talking about the initial block level and then the halves on top after. So underneath this bit that's coming straight to us here in the middle is one full block. That came out nice and far. That gave me my distance out, if you like, and then you can just see the sort of 2/3 of the one that cuts across from there. So I got them in. That gave me the height to work off, which is the same as these ones, and it gave me the distance out from here. Then what I did over here, it's onto the soil. So what I did is I lined up the coping stone as it is now, and then I dug a trench down to pretty solid ground, not solid ground, but not sort of loose ground, if you like, from the fence out as far as this initial stone that was on the pavement come out. And then what I did is I usually use the pre-mixed cement. It just comes in bags. It's already ready mixed sand and cement, and so you just add the water in a bucket rather than buy bags of sand and cement. If you were going to do it that way, the ratio is 3 parts sand to 1 part cement if you were going to do it that way. I just do it this way because it's easier for me. So once I dug that trench effectively from as sort of long as this little wall is here, I made up some sand and cement, but then I filled it with loads of gravel to bulk it up a little bit, which is kind of like a little foundation. Laid that in there, flattened it off so that it was roughly the same height as the patio, and then I also did this bit at the back here. You probably won't see it, but at the bottom there's just one of those curb stones. That's the same, that's sat on a little foundation as well. So I let those go off, and then the next thing I needed to do was get my distance from the outer edge of this one to the outer edge of this one, and then I could go online, octagon calculator, work out what each length of the side of the octagon was. It turned out to be just under 30 centimetres. That was 72 from the outside edge of that block, or the left as we're looking at it, to the right side of this block. You can see I haven't lined it up exactly right. We'll get into that in a second though. So yeah, and then I lent the first layer of blocks on this one coming out from the fence, got my measurement, did that, and then when that was all going off, I spent in the evening, I cut out some of these and just mocked it all up. Now, as I said before, I use thermalite blocks, which are these bluey ones, and you can just cut them with a wood saw. You know, you don't need a big thing just to you know, a big what do they use, a grinder or whatever they use to chop through them. Nice and easy. So where I've got full blocks, I use the normal concrete ones, like there's one there, one down there. When I'm using anything with a cut, I use the thermalite. You can split these concrete ones, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I just use an SDS drill with a sort of chisel bit on it, and just like you can see there, just go up and down the middle of it where I want it, and then they tend to break. Some of them don't. I think that's a slightly different one though. So yeah, anyway, so then yeah, I mocked all that up. That's okay. It's quite important when you're doing stuff like this. I'm not obviously a professional block layer by any stretch, but it's quite important if you're doing stuff like this to stagger your joints. And by that I mean, in its easiest essence, is like this. You have two end blocks, and then on top of that you wouldn't have two end blocks, you would have, you know, no join above that join effectively. That just adds strength. When it comes to these bits here, which are quite tricky, you can see the two outer ones are rectangular shaped, like just normal blocks, and then this one's been cut out to 45s. Underneath it, this bottom one is a full block, a rectangle one, and then these two on the sides are actually the cutouts. And what that means is that if you think, if we're looking down, you can just about see it there in the centre of the screen. That block, this block is actually sat on the one below over the joint, if you see what I mean. So it just adds a bit of strength. So yeah, so cut out all of them one night, mocked it up, all looked good. So the next morning I came out, put them in where they were going to go, and then dug the trench down for this bit and put in a bit of concrete or just the cement mixed up with it. And then also what I did, because I knew this middle block, if you like, the one at the back of this little plinth, if you like, I knew that was going to be a continuation of this one with the bamboo, so I put a big square of concrete foundation down there as well at the height of the patio, just because I knew this was going to sit on it. You may be asking yourself why it's kind of what I'm calling the bridge. The reason is because this is all open to earth. I'll go through it in a sec, but that's all open to the earth and the ground. So I just kind of thought, if this one was a complete wall going across and this was just its own section, it's not that big, whereas this opens it up a little bit and just lets the roots get round and things like that. So yeah, I put that in, and then fairly simple from that, just put stuff on top of it. Now where I messed up was because I'd got to a certain stage about halfway through, and if you think this little, sorry, the sun's come out right at the wrong point, but this statue isn't actually going to sit central between the two blocks coming out from the fence, if you like, the outer ones. It actually, because of this fence post, it's actually sitting in the middle between the fence post and that. And when I mocked the this octagon jut out as it was, it sort of looked a bit off, if you know what I mean, because the centre of the octagon was a bit further to the left. So I thought what I'd do, which was probably a mistake, but I'll get away with it hopefully, I just sort of added thick cement lines in there just to bring it across a little bit, just so the centre of this jut out, as we're looking at it from here, kind of a bit more lines up with that plinth there. I'm hoping once I plant the camellia in there, then it will sort of, you know, and I get some coping stones on it, then it will sort of, you know, I'll be able to line it up eye-wise, if you know what I mean, so it doesn't offend me too much. So anyway, going forward with these, this little plinth here that I've made up is essentially one of these that I cut by mistake with the 245s on, and then what I've done is just whatever the measurement was on the flat bit on the top of that block as we're looking at it, which was 7 centimetres. I measured 7 centimetres on the diagonal and then just chopped it lengthways towards us, and that's why it's got the sort of edge on it that it has. It's not perfect, but with the soil coming up past that bottom block, same level as that soil, you're only going to see a few inches of it anyway, so paint it white and happy days. So with regard to what's left to do in here, you can see what I did as well. I got a bit smart on the last video where I said, haha, I purposely left a thermalite block there so that if I needed to put some holes for drainage in, which I have done at the bottom there, it'd be nice and easy to drill through. Fully not appreciating the fact that in order to have the drainage holes in, they need to be on the floor, and where the floor is, the blocks obviously sat on mortar, so I had to drill through the mortar, which was a bit of a pain, but there we go. So what I've done with that is I've just used some overflow pipe, filled it up with this pea gravel like a tube of Smarties, and then just poked them in there. And then what I'll do here is I'll cover all of this bottom of this bed with gravel up higher than those pipes, if you see what I mean, so they can't get clogged up with mud. Hopefully it's only going to be a little bit, so I'm not too worried about it. But then that then drains into this one. You can just see down there, there's one of the tubes which I've covered in gravel, there's another one there, the end of the bamboo one has got one going down there as well. So I'll effectively, what I'm going to do next in here is, you see all my rough cement work which has got like little edges on it, I'm going to like sort of effectively unedge it, if you like, just try and knock out what I can, try and get out all this old cement. Oh yeah, another thing, what I did as well is, before I did it all and I'd had the sort of foundations in, I dug right down and mixed in a load of manure and grit and everything into this, because it had been walked on a lot, so it's quite compact, so that ground goes down at least the size of a fork, you know, a fork teeth, or whatever you want to call it. I can't think what they call it. There is a proper word for them, I can't remember though. But yeah, effectively it's about 6 to 8 inches deep with gravel and manure, that. And then what I'll do, got some heavy duty rubble sacks which are kind of like bin liners, but you get them from like Screwfix and B&Q. It's about a tenner for 10 of them, but they are really, really good, because you don't want to go and get the ones from Tesco or supermarkets. They're not the same. Because I've actually, being a plumber, I've actually drained radiators and boilers into the rubble sacks I use, and you can carry bags of water out in them, they're that good. So what I'm going to do is kind of wallpaper the outside, the inside edge of the outside walls, if you like, with that. And then it just means any moisture, and the fence post, and it just means any moisture that's in the soil won't sort of get into the concrete and the blocks, it will just drop down. And then yeah, like I said, take up all the cement, put in a few more bits of gravel here and there, and then I'll fill it up with a sort of, well, in here for the camellias it'll have to be an ericaceous mix, so it'll probably be a mix of new topsoil, some of the old clay I took out which is in that bucket there, which is full of water, just to, so it's in the natural soil as well. Yeah, manure, and chicken manure pellets and other such joyous things, just get that nicely in there. And then I'll plant them up with, yeah, so this smaller, sort of longer camellia is going to go at the back there behind the head, have the head here, and then that bigger camellia here, smaller Cyathea couperii there, big Cyathea couperii there, which will hopefully the fronds will come out and over the door, so you sort of walk out into it. When it comes to these coping stones, you can see they're quite thick, they're actually exactly double the width of a block, funnily enough, and you can see there it's okay, it looks quite good, but over here it's going to take up too much of the space. And also, if you look at it like we are now, you can see how uneven it looks. But what I kind of thought is that if that coping stone's going to be there, which it has to go, here's one I prepared earlier, instead of putting that one dead in the centre like that, if you like, if I just move it across so that it's lined up with the edge of that one, then suddenly it makes it a bit more in the middle of the head. So I think that's about the best I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do, all the because they are quite big, and for these ones I'm not going to be able to cut them really, because they've got like a beveled edge on them. As you can see there, it's like a trapezium shape. So what I'm going to try and do possibly is anything coming from the fence towards us, so i.e. this line here, that top bit, and then this one, that one there, and then that side, I'll do with these big ones. And then anything that's going sort of horizontal, if you like, or you know, across from us, or these little ones, I'll try and buy some coping that's the exact width of the blocks or thereabouts, and I should be able to cut them in a bit better as well. So yeah, so it's pretty good. It's getting windy. The rain feels like it's coming now. I can feel a few little splurges on my back, so better wrap this up fairly sharpish. But yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. The bench we've got actually fits, funny enough, perfectly in there, so that's quite good. Saves me having to make a pallet bench. The only next thing I'm going to do actually is, when it probably gets to February, I'm going to chop all that bamboo down, because last year I got it from the old Deers allotment and I just kind of hacked it up. So it had sort of the original bits in there, which you can see are kind of a bit brown at the back, and then when it sprouted new growth, it all came forward and is leaning towards us, because obviously the old sort of stuff, although it's not growing and dead, it was restricting it and coming out. So I want it all to grow up straight, so I'm going to chop all that bamboo down in the next month or two, and then hopefully the new growth will just go straight up there. Get these all filled up. I'm not going to paint anything yet, or do anything. I haven't decided on the front yet. I'll probably just render it, but I do need to have a little think, because if I've got any little stones left over, like these sort of size ones here, after the waterfall that's going to go at the back, I could actually use these thick coping stones on top of these and then sort of front it up with rocks, if you know what I mean. But then I'd have to do the same for that one over there to make it tie up. So yeah, just a little bit of the finishing touches we need to worry about. There's the cat. Yeah, that's pretty much it really. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, like I said, is just dig up all this, get out all the cement, fill it up, let it all settle over the next month or two until I put out the plants, which are doing okay inside at the moment. I've decided not to risk them, and thank God I didn't, because we had temperatures down to -8, which I'll get to in the next video, and the main banana hasn't collapsed, but can you see the big pup has collapsed? So yeah, I probably should have protected those bananas. And also I was a bit of a nose, because that tree fern actually got frosted. You can see how dark the things are, and then in my haste to remove all of this old straw and bark and everything that I'd lent up against it to protect it, I snapped all the fronds. Well, not all of them, but you can just see there's 3 or 4 there that snapped. I didn't realise they were going to be so brittle, because I lean in and out of that all the time generally, and they're fine. But where I was leaning into the back, and it was just a day after the frost, so they were obviously weak and they snapped, so that's a little bit disappointing, but you know, I know not to do it next time, so that's all you can do. Right, well, anyway, yeah, next job's for me now. Now I've got this measurement here, the next job is to get the other tiki head, which I did go and find one the other day, but it's 70 quid, so it's one of them. I'm just converting an office as well, so it's just where the funds go to, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I can now get to the centre of the garden, which is roughly where we are here, measure from the exact centre across to that jut out, and then measure from there across. That's where the tiki head will have to go, and then as long as I put the 2 posts that are going either side of this little jut out, you know, symmetrical, that'll all tie up quite nicely, and I can get on with building up this little area here. I mean, it's pretty much, the gist of it is there, as you can see. I just need to actually get it all in there properly once I've got the tiki head and can see where it's going to go. So yeah, anyway, hope you've all had a good time, enjoying time off and whatnot. Looks like it's going to rain, so I will bid you adieu.